Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. We hope that you help support us by watching these films. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bomb Squad for the first time today. We have a special guest because William does not know how to tell time and he's gone. Or maybe, I don't remember what his excuse was. But he'll be here next week.
It's on vacation.
Oh, that's right. I made it seem like it was way more
Wow.
sinister than
He's
it was.
in New York.
God forbid someone take a
Oh,
break.
that's right. Yes, he's
Yeah.
on his honeymoon. It's because
He's not on his. He's been
it's his
married.
anniversary. It's anniversary. It was
Oh
something.
my God.
Something related to marriage. William, don't
He's
watch this episode.
spending time.
There's no way he watches episodes he's not on. I definitely don't.
I'm
Anyway.
gonna get to Portland and I'm gonna be like, William, where's your wife? And it's like, it's gonna like be like the Joker where you realize that there was no wife. He's gonna make it up this whole time.
No.
That's the only time we'll ever reference the Joker in a positive way, guys. So enjoy it. But yeah, so we brought a guest. We worked on 2 different projects together. Oh, 3, maybe more. We worked on a couple. Maura Moreno is a.
Close enough.
This is the 4th time I've had to say that name.
It's like you.
It's bad.
Since I've had to say.
I know. You
My
understand.
whole life.
But yeah, so she's an actress. We worked on 2 shorts that are coming out this year. The Shadow and what was the other one? Oh, Frankenstein, the monster one.
Yeah.
Yes. Fun times. So Maura, can you tell us a little bit about what got you into acting?
Ooh, I did theater in high school because of course I did. Yeah, I mean I had a lot of fun like doing it, and then I did it for like 2 years because I didn't do it till like my junior year, and then I started college, and then COVID happened. So I didn't get back into acting until we were doing our like multi-class projects for like NMSU because I went to film school.
Yeah. Cool.
But we had like open casting calls, and I was like producing something as well as first ADing, and we had the casting calls. So I was like, yeah, sure, like I'll do it. Why not? And then I ended up having a role in one of those, ironically as a barista, which is my day job. So crazy. I think I've been a barista like maybe like 2-3 times in like roles before I was actually one in real life. So weird. But yeah, so I got that role, and then I was like, oh shit, this is really fun. I forgot. I'm gonna do it again. But that was my first time like doing it. in front of cameras. Before that, it was like in front of people.
Oh, right, right.
I mean, crews are people too. Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. Not to us. Not to us above the line people.
Well, I did say
That's
I
right.
was a producer.
You gotta earn, yeah.
No, I love crew. I'm usually crew. I'm just tired of doing it.
Yeah, I subverted expectations by making Maura a coffee shop customer in our short that you will see
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
sometime this
true.
year.
That's
Yeah.
a new one.
That's very good. So when
That's
you
right.
kind of, I mean, the shorts that we worked on one short that's a little bit more intensive, and there was more of a character. One of them that's just kind of like something Andrew thought was funny. And so when you look at these roles, like how do you approach them? Do you kind of make a backstory, or you just kind of look at them? Are you like Harrison Ford, where he's like, I'm just gonna say the lines and leave?
Well, in preparation for the Frankenstein skit, I went to a coffee shop every day, not for my job or anything, but
Exactly. That's the kind of
fun.
method acting that I employ.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what the role is. I think for the ones that I've done, I've just kind of like I will say the lines to myself like a crazy person and try to say like, oh, that doesn't work. I won't do that. But usually it feels more like kind of throwing myself into a pool. I'm like, we'll just see what happens. We'll figure out what happens.
Yeah.
I found that if I overthink too much, it's not gonna be good. So I kind of
Right.
just go for it.
It is like kind of a weird thing when you think about just this idea where you're like kind of forcing yourself to memorize something that's supposed to sound
Yeah.
not memorized at all. I didn't realize that until you kind of mentioned that yeah, it's supposed to be like, I understand that kind of, oh, just get there, you know. And I for me on my end, I always tell actors like, just however you want to say it, say it. Like there's
Yeah.
certain lines that I might make you stay the same, but I'd rather have them say it the way, like one of our movies, the character didn't like to say shit. And so we took all the shits out of that script. Not according to the reviews, but anyway, we took them out, and so they didn't say them. I mean, it's like, to me, I'd rather have them feel natural than
Yeah.
than have them kind of like be forced to talk when they're not supposed to, you know.
Yeah, I think that's something I really appreciate when directors do because it's really hard to kind of stick to something. I think
Right.
it does help that since I started out doing like theater, I think it helped that I had to like commit more to whatever I was going to say because that was like the last chance I was going to get to do it. And then also, yeah, I would not say my theater director was super keen on improvising.
Oh,
Especially
yeah.
since I don't know why we did a lot of like more period pieces. So
Pretty strict, yeah. Some
I don't
theater
usually speak
directors.
like I'm from the 1800s.
Right.
But, not always.
Yeah.
As
Like,
a
where the
kid,
fuck are you, Romeo? That's
yeah.
how it should have been
Dude,
said.
what the fuck?
What the fuck, Romeo? Let's hang out or what?
So I mean, that is like a fun challenge to try
Yeah.
to make it sound like modern. I don't know. I really am impressed when people have to like stick to doing Shakespeare and shit. But
Yeah.
I really appreciate the room to breathe.
And I think like we're gonna get to the movie, guys. Give me 1 second. But I think like one of the things, I just watched this clip with Michael Keaton where he was talking about like his part in Much Ado About Nothing, and he was like, yeah, they said like, well, my character is the funniest one, and like Shakespeare's plays are funny, and he's like, I never thought they were funny. And he was like, so then someone was like, well, what if you play it drunk? And I was like, okay, I can do that. And he was like, and the Shakespeare like expert that was on set looked at me like he wanted to kill me every single time I talked.
Oh
And
my
it's
god.
like, it's funny,
Right.
like especially like with Michael Keaton, like he's done everything, you know, he's literally Batman. But like even he, like when he got to Shakespeare, he was like, I'm not gonna try with this.
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
gonna
it's
say it.
scary.
You know? So Josh, what do you think now? Josh also came from theater, and he defends William Shakespeare to the
Do
death.
I?
I don't know. I assume.
Probably not. I liked the Leo play, or the Leo movie, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
maybe someday we'll do that one on the podcast.
We did already with Bethany.
Oh wait, was I not on that one?
Oh, maybe it was.
Oh no, that's so sad.
Oh man,
We
you could
kicked
tell
you
how
outta
much
here. We
attention
didn't
I
wanna hear
pay,
any
but
of this pro.
Oh, you like this movie? You can't do it then.
Yeah. We're like,
So
none-
sad.
I think
none
I
of
was
that.
actually on my honeymoon at the time. That was probably.
Well, everyone's just on honeymoons.
Apparently, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah. Well, good time. So as always, when we have a guest, we let them pick. And Mara picked the 2022, so long ago, film MoonFall, directed by Roland Emmerich, written by Roland Emmerich. Good job, man. You're just all over this thing. Starring Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, Charlie Plummer as my favorite character, Patrick Wilson's son, who's definitely in this whole movie the entire time.
Michael
Also,
Pena.
it stars Michael Pena. We'll talk about him later. But Josh, and don't you ever
Oh,
even think about
no.
spoiling any part of this movie.
You're going to make me
anything that
explain
happens after the
Moonfall?
first 30 minutes.
no.
Why don't you give us a brief rundown of what this movie's about?
Well, the moon is falling and they don't know what the fuck to do.
It's true. It's very true.
And essentially, an amateur moonologist is like, hey, I think this moon is falling. Can I get NASA on the phone? And they're like, no. And so he's like, Patrick Wilson, you were an astronaut. The moon's falling.
He does call the NASA gift shop, so I feel like he's setting himself up to fail.
Yeah, he's pretty incompetent, despite being the only guy who knows about this phenomenon. And then him and Patrick Wilson turns out they're right. The moon is falling, and they need to come up with a plan to prevent the titular moonfall.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, the moon's falling. That's a lot of plot. I bet you there's not going to be any weird twists halfway through. Well, guess what, guys? There is. We'll get to that first. So, why did you pick Moonfall?
Probably because maybe the most worst thing I've ever seen. I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
I found out about it because I had a friend, Nydia. Shout out Nydia. Who was like, you guys, she kept being, she one time was trying to explain the plot to me. And I was like, what are you saying right now?
Yeah.
What are the things that you're telling me? And then eventually we did end up watching it at her house with a bunch of people. And I had taken an edible. And I still don't know if it ever kicked in or not.
Yeah.
Because I was just watching Moonfall. And I don't know how much of it was like an edible or just the experience of watching Moonfall.
Yeah.
So they are kind of a similar. Trying to understand Moonfall is like trying to read while you're on an edible.
Yeah. I think what might have happened is I was trying so hard to figure out what was going on that it didn't work.
Well, and let me just start off by saying I thought this movie starred Gerard Butler, so I was already they're already subverting expectations.
You were thinking of Geostorm, I believe.
First, yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
So have you you hadn't
that
seen
movie
this before.
Geostorm? No, I had never seen it, and I
Okay.
will say it was a lot of fun. Because, like, first of all, the first person you see is Halle Berry, Oscar winner Halle Berry, and you're like, wait, did I put on a different Moonfall that's not about a moonfall and like it's about like a woman who's like coming to terms with something? No, she's in Moonfall, and I feel like the biggest thing about this movie is that I feel like they gave offers to Patrick Wilson and to Halle Berry, saying one of these people is going to be our lead, and they both said yes. And then they're like, we don't have enough, because like both of them will just disappear for long periods.
They were both in that COVID slump where they're like, I'll take anything, bro.
They also both have almost the exact same backstory, just little tweaks.
They're both disgraced astronauts who are like estranged from their spouse. Yeah.
And I will say, like, there's this thing where I really like that Roland Emmerich, like, Roland Emmerich made like Day After Tomorrow. He made Independence Day. He's made this one. He's made 2012. You know what he hasn't done is ever picked up any kind of science book or like watched Bill Nye the Science Guy or like walked outside and understand how weather works like even a little bit. So like it is kind of like he's just kind of like, oh, what if we do this? It's like that's not even how. So it starts off and they're like astronauts and they're kind of in space doing something. And then
that is true.
They're like welding something while listening to Toto's Africa, and then talking about Toto, which I do love that song. It's a great song.
And they get hit with like space debris, and one of their guys is like not attached to any. He's just attached to Patrick Wilson, but they're not attached to anything.
Care about him that much.
Yeah, they're like that one rope is good enough, so he goes spinning. Then the ship goes spinning. So then Patrick Wilson's like, hey man, come back. And he's like, I'm too far. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna go. I'll be back. I'll come get you. And so he goes into the ship. And this is why I think, because Halle Berry throughout this whole scene is just passed out. Like, sure, there's no, she's not in that scene at all. And like he kind of floats past her and he checks her pulse. He's like, okay, she's fine. And he gets to work and it's like, and then he tries to call his friend and he's like, hey, are you still out there? It's like, you're spinning in a spaceship at like 3,000 miles an hour. Maybe put that first. Like, stop this problem. And then worry about your clearly dead friend. And so he stops it. And then his friend is like in Venus by this point. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's dead. Yeah, that guy's done.
Fly out.
But that at the beginning, because that's supposed to be kind of the like, oh, all is going well just before disaster strikes.
Mhm.
It's just another day. And like later in the film, like Halle Berry's like estranged from her like military husband, and but at the beginning of the movie, she's like, oh, this view's so great. Like when I had a choice on my honeymoon of this or Italy, but I think the view's better here. It's like, so you just left your husband on Earth? Like, no wonder. Even if this mission went well, you just ditched him to be an astronaut for, I assume, like months.
Yeah, like she couldn't do like a couple weeks. No,
I know.
Right
also,
then.
like, yeah, like, wait, you had to reschedule, have the honeymoon earlier. Like, what are you talking about? The honeymoon's in a set time?
If she really wanted the honeymoon, she could have gone. She didn't have to pick.
This was like,
Exactly.
she does not like, she's getting married under duress. And like, let me get away from this guy.
And so, and while this is happening, it cuts to Patrick Wilson has a kid. Everyone has a kid in this movie because we're all.
Oh my god.
And the kid is like, oh, my dad is coming, or they're like watching TV, and it literally like, people say that we need AI, but it's like, this script feels like it was written by AI.
Absolutely.
And we just, like, Roland Emmerich is just an AI person. Like,
AI could never write MoonFall.
Exactly.
He couldn't do it.
And so then it cuts as like 10 years later, and it's like, what's happening? Is the moon falling? Like, where are we going? Like, why is there so much
What I love about MoonFall is it has zero respect for any kind of story structure. It consistently will suddenly jump from like, oh yeah, this is like first act to like, wait, why are we in the third act? And why are we having a second act again? And then why are we starting over back into the first act? And why is this first act in the middle of the movie going on for so long?
One of the best action scenes, which we'll get to, involves no major characters whatsoever.
It's just
a scene with people from the movie.
A gun battle with looters. Divorced from everything. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, like, okay, so then we cut, and it's 10 years later. Also, my note says, why is there so much going on and none of it is a moon falling?
Where's that
And
moon?
so, like, then the kid's driving in a car real fast.
Oh, the kid.
And he gets arrested, and then they're apparently Michael Pena. Okay, so here's some tropes of Roland Emmerich if you've never seen his other films. There's always a stepdad. The stepdad is always rich, and he thinks that money can solve everything. Like, it's happened. Yeah. It's happened since Independence Day.
Relationship.
Yeah. And to be even more fair, if anyone was the rich stepdad in this scenario, it'd be Roland Emmerich. He's the richest one out of all of us.
It's true.
Right.
But anyway, so Michael Pena's there, and he's like, oh, we're going to help him. And Patrick Wilson's like, oh, I haven't talked to my kid in 10 years because I'm divorced because an astronaut died. And it's like, all right, I'm down. Just get to the moonfall, guys. And so then they're like in court. And
I love Patrick Wilson's plan here, by the way. Like
Michael, yeah. Well, and
so good at planning. It makes so much sense.
Michael Pena's plan is like, he literally tells the judge, hey, judge, money's no object. Whatever you want us to be bail, we're bail. And then Patrick Wilson's like, no, I'll get him out right now. And then the judge is like, well, since you just said that, you guys are a flight risk. And so you can't, like, I'm going to delay the bail hearing. And it's like, okay, again, I know rudimentary things about court. You cannot delay a hearing because you want a different outcome if you're the judge. You can take away bail. You can make bail super expensive so they can't pay for it. You cannot just take away their court rights.
To me though, like, because Patrick Wilson's just like, I'm just gonna yell things at the
Yeah.
judge. Like a pissed off judge can kind of like bend the rules. I think, and I think that's what was happening.
You can't take away someone's Bill of Rights to do that.
Well, yeah,
we
that
are
part.
given the right to have a fair trial.
I love the idea that he's like, no, I love my son more, so you can't save him.
And
like,
then
let him do it, and like let him do it.
And then Patrick Pena, and then he calls Patrick Pena. He's like, "Hey man, they're doing." And then Patrick Pena's like, "That lawyer costs $50,000 a day." And I was like, "The lawyer who told the judge he's willing to pay any amount of money costs $50,000 a day. You're paying way too much for that lawyer."
See, this wouldn't have happened if they had Saul Goodman.
Exactly.
Or any public defender, really. Yeah.
Also, it's so funny to put Michael Pena in like a piece of shit stepfather role because he like just looks like a teddy bear. Like, what are you guys doing? Why is he this role?
Yeah, well, you can even tell, like, even the movie, like halfway through, is like, he's fine. He's a nice guy.
I know. I love how we're like, actually, we're cool with him now.
They're like, we don't need this plot line. He's just cool.
Which begins another trope of Roland Emmerich, but we'll get to it. Also, he was supposed to be played by Stanley Tucci. It's like, man, I can't think of a more lovable person than Michael Pena, except for Stanley Tucci. You guys really messed up on who, like, Patrick Wilson, make him the stepdad. We want him to die. Okay, so then Patrick Wilson like runs up to the judge because then like there's like weird weather stuff happening, and they're like, we're gonna evacuate this place, and then the judge is like, we can't evacuate your son because I just said no bail and the trial's on next week or something. And then Patrick Wilson's like, well, they're evacuating everyone. He's going to die. And he's like, well, can't get out this weekend. And it's like, Judge, I don't know. I don't know why you think you're Judge Dredd, but that's not how this works. Like,
it's so funny. We can't. Yeah, no, he's just going to have to die. Like, I can't. My hands are tied. Like, he lost the key and he's just trying to cover up. Like.
Yeah, it was very, very much that the whole time.
And we kind of glossed over it, but again, while all this stuff is happening, there's like weird weather things going on, and they're like they saw something when they went up there, and so then it cuts to Halle Berry, and she like works somewhere important.
She has a job, and I don't remember what she's still like kind of with NASA.
She's kind of in the military, but they've both been blackballed, I think.
Yeah.
And then her husband just like lets her walk like around highly like confidential places. So like he's a good husband, I'll tell you that much. Not a good NSA agent. But
I'm really bad at that.
That was also we've also completely glossed over was the Game of Thrones guy? What's his name?
We'll get to him.
He's who I remember the most.
Because he is kind of the main character for most.
He finds it first.
It's supposed to be like the real comedy, like, oh, he's like doing all this on his own, but he's late for his like crappy fast food job.
He's Randy Quaid from Independence Day. Again, another thing that he's Randy Quaid in Independence Day. In one
the guy
of
who
them,
thinks it's
Woody
crazy, is
Harrelson.
right? Yeah, and then
he made one successful movie, and he decided, I'm gonna just make that.
He's like, well, this will work.
It even has the like, you're 7 minutes late. That's a demerit, like manager and stuff like that. It's just it's very much playing to that type. But then he runs into Patrick Wilson because he's trying to like meet him. Yeah, and they join up. I mean, a lot of plot stuff's happening for a while.
So then Halle Berry's like looking at, there's like New Moon people. And they're like, hey, we're also going to the moon. Let's figure out what's going on. And then they like get killed by something, right? And then Halle Berry is like, we need to tell the people about this, like what's going on. And then like her husband is like, no, we can't tell them. And she's like, oh, I'm going to tell him anyway. And he's like, you need to remember who you work for. And she goes, I work for the American people, and we're keeping them in the dark. And I was like, this is so funny to have watched this during COVID. We were like, it's like, no, I understand why you're not telling. That guy's right. We shouldn't.
Yeah, it's good. Like, dumb as fuck. And that is true. It's like, like, no, we literally don't want to cause a panic because people will start looting, and which is exactly what happens when they find
Yeah.
out like 10 minutes later. But yeah, no, that's such a like weird like no, let's just tell them everything. It's like, do you know how like military secrets work? It's
What is the American public gonna do about it?
I
Like,
know.
right.
what are we gonna do?
Like,
I
yeah, don't
can't
tell me
help
the
it.
moon's
I'm
falling.
sorry.
Let it be a
It
surprise.
would literally be like don't look up. That just
Yeah.
people like either going
Gosh,
crazy or
yeah.
denying it. But
Which does eventually happen, yeah. So then they show the astronauts, like there's a video. And there's also a POV video. It's not important. I just thought it was funny that it cuts to like the guy like looking at, and there's like nanobots or something. And I will say, that's a pretty cool scene where the nanobots eat those astronauts in the airplane or in the spaceship.
yeah,
Because
I don't mind the
that's
nanobot
pretty
like
freaky.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's good stuff there.
Because I was thinking, like, you already kind of freaked out if you're in in a spaceship, right? Because you're like
Yeah.
strapped in, you're breathing like not your real air, like it's the tank, and then like you're just sitting there. Like there's like scenes where they're just sitting there, like the monster's eating the guy next to them, and they're just kind of like but it's like you're kind of a little bit bored but you know, like you're gonna die next, you know?
Yeah, you're just waiting, like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, imagine being the third guy. You have to wait 2 other people. It's like, can you kill me first? Like, why is this nanobot thing? Aren't you all independent? Like, why are you killing us, taking your time?
Yeah, I mean, not to tell the nanobots how to do their job, but I would have
Yeah.
just.
They're just
Like,
chilling,
them
you
all.
know.
It also could have just like got It's not important.
I will. This part is murky because I will say I was trying to look up the name of the Game of Thrones guy, which is John Bradley, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
And I was like, Donald Sutherland's on the cast list. He was in this, and I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, Donald Sutherland is like a former astronaut who knew about this the whole time, but like
Yeah.
they kept it secret. And I was like, oh yeah, what happens to him in the movie? And then it just says, after a conversation with Fowler, he presumably commits suicide off screen. It's like, oh,
Did you presume that? 'Cause I didn't.
I did not. But now I want to go into my movies Wikipedia, and every time anyone's off screen, I'm just gonna put that.
if they're not in the rest of the movie, they shot
know what they
themselves
did,
10
but-
seconds later.
Walked off screen.
I wish I had known that before because I would have watched this. And anytime anyone's off screen, I was like, "Oh no, you know what they did."
It's like, oh man, his manager for the fast food place fucking dead.
That's
Never
why they
seen
want to
it
tell
before.
the American people. You see what they do?
American people.
And so then they're like going to they're like going somewhere. A lot of his movies, them going places that we don't know where they're going. And there's like a huge tsunami, and it's coming, and they're like, "Oh, we need to get in this building." And then the Game of Thrones guy is just sitting there watching it, and then all the water comes in, and he's like, "I can't swim." And I was like, "Why would you just stand there? You can't swim. Aren't you supposed to be the smart one in this like little group?"
He's like, he is truly like Twitter personified.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
the guy who's like smart but does nothing about it and just
yeah,
complains.
you know exactly what his like online presence looks
Yeah.
like.
I did like
What?
this whole scene because the military doesn't know what to do yet, and then Halle Berry's husband's like, "Oh, she's like, hey, you're not gonna like nuke the moon, are you?" And he's like, "How did you know about that?" And
I can believe this.
and she's like, "If you do that, everyone on Earth will die. That's such a bad idea." And he's like, "I'm asking you to think about your son." It's like, well, no, I just said everyone will die.
Yeah, he's part of that group.
He will die too. That's
And I know what you're thinking, guys. Son? So that's right. Halle Berry and the other guy also have a son. It's also neglected, and then they're also trying to get him out. And so then, but by the way, when that guy gets hit with water, there's another amazing scene where there's like this fake Russell Brand type character, and the dude's drowning, but every time it just cuts back to Russell Brand wannabe and Patrick Wilson, and he's like, "There he is," and then Patrick Wilson like looks, and then it just cuts back to him like flopping around in the water, and they're like, "No, he's over there now." And I was like, "That dude is dead." It's been like 15 minutes of you guys playing spot the guy. There's only like so much places he could be.
yeah.
So then, this is when spoiler alert for Moonfall. Because I know you guys are like, I'm so invested in what you've said so far about this amazing plot. Please don't spoil it. But I would say we're going to spoil a little bit because you have to. So Donald Sutherland also tells them, like, hey, by the way, the moon is hollow. And then we find out that those little bots, they're nanobots, so they're AI, so there's an alien there. And so now they're gonna go to the moon and I guess stop them. I don't know. It's not important. The important thing is that this movie about moonfalls is also about AI and possibly aliens, which we'll get to in a second.
It's
Obviously.
robot aliens, I believe.
It's
Kind
robot
of?
aliens. It's not, kind of.
It's yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We're so far we're barely there, but I want to talk about the fact that Roland Emmerich wrote a movie and was like, "What if the moon was a psyop?" It's like,
Yeah.
'cause-
Okay.
yeah.
I feel like he might have gone down the wrong internet rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to
And he
think
was like, what if this
Very
was
very QAnon
this?
style. Yeah.
Yeah.
he
There's
he
a
had
lot of QAnon like red herrings in there. There is a point where Casey, Samuel Tarley,
yeah.
puts a red pill in his mouth when he's up in space.
Oh
And I
right.
That part that's the part that I remember the most because I think I yelled at that point.
Oh, that he was
Like,
literally
there's
red
no
pilled.
fucking way.
He
Like,
also says at the
dude.
very beginning, and this is the line that ages the worst. He says, "What would Elon do?" At the beginning,
Oh,
and I was like, "I'm sorry, this is 2022. We all knew Elon was a piece of shit by
like,
this point."
aged poorly. It aged
Great, it was
poorly.
probably written and filmed like 2 years earlier. Still, the
I
proof
like to
was there.
think I like to think that Roland Emmerich was like walking, and then Aaron Rodgers was also walking, and they both had scripts in their hands, and they crashed, and they like just grabbed the papers and they ran away, and they're like, "No, this will work."
He had a little meet cute.
Why was Aaron Rodgers writing a script in the stereo?
He was writing his epic movie Fauci Killers.
The Fauci Killer Chronicles, yeah.
But it's also like, okay, and then they also have to go somewhere. And I know what you're thinking. Why aren't you saying where they're going? Because it does not matter. They're just going places.
We don't
They're
know.
now,
It's
yeah.
It's
And now
very
they're
like
going-
Transformers, where there's like, oh, we have to go to Egypt for 2 minutes to talk to this guy.
Mhm.
Now we're in England. Now we're in Africa. You know, it's
We have to
bouncing
show what the
everywhere.
budget was.
Yeah, like whatever has the best incentive is the next location we have to get to. That's what they decide. And then the kid comes back. The son. He got out of jail. Remember? He was in jail 30 minutes ago.
He didn't kill himself off screen.
Right. He's one of the few. And so then they're like, hey, did you read Save the Cat? Because I read Save the Cat. And we need someone to drive. Do we have anyone who we know that drives recklessly? The son. He's perfect candidate for this role. So glad that was established earlier that the son knows how to drive fast. We could not have guessed that.
Reckless driver.
Yeah. So then they're like, okay, we're gonna go in the spaceship. We're gonna go up to Mars or whatever.
They have to. They actually do spend a lot of time on this, which is like, you don't need to do this. Where they have to use an old spaceship because the alien robot knows too much about modern technology. But if you use old technology from like 40 years ago, you trick it. And then that's why why only Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry could do it, because they're the only ones who know how to use
from 10
the
years
old
ago.
spaceships. Yeah, which is
it's called
seems
foreshadowing, Josh.
I do think that spatials probably don't change that. I feel like the alien probably could have locked that in still, but let's skip over that.
Also, keep in mind that this alien is like 3,000 pounds of nanobots. So like it doesn't really need to take control of anything. It could just like fling you.
Yeah, like for some reason it can only sense if you have new modern technology and you're like a living organism. Because at one point he has a cell phone on him and it's like, turn it off. Like,
oh yeah.
It's...
And he goes, it's in airplane mode.
You switch your devices to airplane mode, they can't get it.
Fucking...
Everything we say about this movie sounds like a joke we're making about it, but it really happens.
We mentioned William Shakespeare, and I think it was a perfect intro to this screenwriting legend.
Shakespearean, absolutely.
And so then they're like, okay, we're going to space. Kids go to Colorado or something. We do not care what happens to either of you. Get the hell out of here. And then it's like, oh, I guess Halle Berry has to go. I was like, oh, I thought she was going. Because she's like, oh, I don't know if I can go. And it's like, she's like, who's going to be there? You know, like she doesn't want to, but she ends up going. But my favorite part is they're getting to the spaceship. And then Patrick Wilson's like looking at his suit and he's like, oh, wow. What are these? And they're like, oh, they're prototypes that don't use electricity or something. It's like, again, they would not give you the suit right before. Like, they have to measure you and, like, get everything to work.
This one's a one size fits all.
Yeah. And also, like, KC is like a normal dude. He's not, like, in shape at all. So it's like, how did they just have this suit? Like, did they know he was coming? How does Patrick Wilson just not show up to meetings or something? Like, how does he not know anything?
It's such a weird, like, there's no reason to have them having to, like, do this sneaky, like, against, like, because they're kind of, like, sneaking around against the government. They're like, we're going to call in favors from NASA. The movie would be the same if the government was helping them. There's, like...
It's so true.
Yeah, it's such a weird, like, thing to spend so much time on.
And I know what you're thinking, guys. You're thinking, okay, they're going to the spaceship. The kids are going to Colorado. But what happened to everyone else who helped them? And it's like, oh, they went safely into a tsunami and got viciously murdered. They weren't even on. They didn't even get to suicide themselves, which is where I assumed they were going. Because
washed out of their hands.
Because they get the worst death out of, like, they're all flying and the tsunami's like coming this way and the helicopter's like this way. It's like, you guys know you can fly, right? You could go a direction that's not into the tsunami, but they crash. And then the airplane's like lifting off in a cool scene, which again, I don't think makes any sense whatsoever. Because the airplane's lifting off and it's surrounded by tsunami. And then the kids have stopped and gotten out of the car to like look and see. And I thought, man, what an amazing movie this would be if they got out of the car, they're looking up, and then that ship just explodes. And their parents are just like, yeah, man, you shouldn't have stopped here.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh man, if it explodes, that'd be amazing. So then they're like, oh yeah, there's a tsunami, get in the car. And then they outdrive the tsunami because the kid, again, can drive fast.
That is definitely too a Roland Emmerich is someone out driving like an insane like million person killing natural disaster like without much difficulty, you know, like kind of like just doing it just by going pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 75 miles per hour.
That's like this. See, this is where it splits off, and you know, they're in space, like doing it on the ground. This is the movie I like, where it's them. The kids, Halle Berry's son and Patrick Wilson's son, meet up with Michael Pena, and I guess the mom, you know, whatever.
And I don't even think we see the mom for a long time.
But like. Michael Pena like is trying to like he's like, hey, I'm a rich guy, come get my rich guy house. But then they're like being attacked by looters who are like, oh, end of the world, time to start stealing stuff. So they're having to like fight off these looters. And at one point, Michael Pena is like leaning out of the car with a pistol, just like dropping mag against these guys. And I was like, yay!
Because they're like shooting at him, and Michael Pena's like, what should I do? And the kid's like, shoot back. And he's like, here's a gun. And it's like, okay. And so they start shooting at each other. And then, like, the whole time, again, they're just surrounded by tsunamis.
Yeah.
Now meteors are falling.
These looters, I've seen, like, this wall of fire and, like, water coming at them. And, like, you know what? I got to kill Michael Pena. I don't care what happens to me.
They're also all... Okay, so they already have a car because it's a chase. They're not going to stay in the house because it's about to be under, like, 200 feet of water. So what exactly?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, they're about to die. Kind of detach yourself from worldly possessions. Like,
they're basically like video game enemies. They're just completely locked in on like antagonizing the protagonists.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the most Americans I've ever seen. Good for you guys. And then like a huge cargo ship. Just describing what happened in the movie.
I love just like this is like where he's like, oh yeah, gravity would be crazy because it'll affect like ships and water, but not cars on the road. Those still act normal.
It will sometimes affect logs.
If you
Um,
do a jump in the car, it'll be a really sick jump, but otherwise the car acts normally. Don't worry about it too much.
He's just kind of heard of gravity, but
yeah, he knows that it's
never looked
there,
into it too
but
much.
he thinks you can turn it off. And then, and by the way, while all this is happening, and they're literally like shooting each other in hellscape, like the whole sky is red. Like upstairs in the moon, they're like, so they get away from the AI, and he's like banging on this big door, and they get in, and they realize the moon's hollow, and it's built like it. It looks like that thing from Rick and Morty, where all the Mortys are like protecting it.
Oh yeah, the like the Morty dome or whatever.
Yeah, and so then they're like, "Oh, come in, like we'll let you in," and so they let him in, and like while that's happening, it's a very quiet, like Contact style, like alien thing going on, and then down below is just like Grand Theft Auto on the
Yeah, it's like cutting between these two things, and it does not. The structure is all over the place.
and then so they're talking to him, and they're like, "We got to figure out how to do this," and then they find out that the AI. So then, what we find out is that a long time ago, all the planets had humans on them, and then they made AI. And A24 kept putting in the promotional images, and the AI eventually. And then there's a hilarious scene. So like Patrick Wilson goes into this room, and his little kid is there, still as a little kid, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a projection," because that's what other movies have done. And Roland Emmerich is like, "That's fine." And so he's like, "Oh yeah, like so this happened a little." So he's telling him like this story about their planet, but this little kid is like adding emphasis to the words. So he's like, "And then they came," and it's like, "Are you giving me information? Or are you like telling me a story, kid?"
Yeah. For an AI, you're very,
Yeah.
emotionally charged about this.
And then so then like he's telling him that like back then they ruled, and then AI.
Yeah, like the AI killed all the humans, and then then Earth was cut off, but then they found Earth, or something like
They
that.
literally say this in the movie. They say the AI became self-aware. It's like, yeah, that's what AI is. Like it's supposed to be self-aware. That's where the intelligence parts come.
It's actually very similar to the plot of both Mass Effect and Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie. That's
Right.
that's the twist, right? That it's an evil
It's
AI.
always AI goes bad.
And I think that the AI was also on the moon in the Tom Cruise movie.
Oh my
So
God.
then,
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, and so they sent the moon as a ship, and
Yes.
they sent the moon to a bunch of planets to go inhabit them, and so it's taken that AI like a billion years to find us, and he's finally done it. And I guess they're gonna kill us, but we can't go to different
Like,
planets. So why
why?
does he care? Yeah,
Like,
they
what is
care.
I think it's like, oh, let's just get rid of humans once and for all. That's
You
know what?
generally the.
I get it.
You know what?
Yeah, we are pretty terrible, but
Yeah. And so while this AI hears the history of the human race, what's going on upstairs? Lycopenia's on the ground, and they have oxygen tanks. And then we get our other famous trope. Regardless of how nice the stepdad is, he's going down. So he's like, "Keep walking," and he's like falling, and he can't breathe. He's like, "Just keep walking," and then he dies. And I was like, "What the fuck? Why'd you kill this guy?"
He's fighting some
he has to
demons.
do it. Yeah, and this
Every-
is
Yeah. It's the most like dying out of oxygen as you watch your like stepdaughter walk away. It's like so gruesome.
This is also the part where they remember that Halle Berry's ex-husband is in the movie, because the president's like, "All right, we've had enough. Nuke the moon." And then the husband pulls a gun. He's like, "No, sir."
Yes.
He's like, "What the?"
Well, he's not, because they're like, they're gonna nuke the moon, and then the kid calls. The kid calls. He's like, "Hey, Dad, Mom's up there," and he's like, "What? Maybe I should have checked in the last 3 days." And then I'm gonna say, listen, I'm pretty anti-violent, but if there's just one guy in your way and the consequences are the entire planet's gonna die, even if he has a gun, you're a military guy. Like, get him out of the way. Like, are you guys Americans or not?
push him a little.
So can I
Yeah.
just say,
At that point,
in refreshing myself, because despite the fact that I saw this movie 24 hours ago, some of it has escaped me. The summary on Wikipedia says Doug refuses to comply, with debris collapsing the bunker shortly thereafter, presumably killing him and everyone inside.
Seriously,
Everyone dies the second they're off screen.
presumably shoots himself off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Presumably they all die. If you don't see them on screen anymore, they're
I guess you do never see the president or any of those characters again, so
Right.
we don't know.
Oh,
I do like that everyone, if you're not on screen, you're gone.
You're dead.
these are
Yeah.
the only people that are alive in this world.
The only, it's funny though, because then the climax of the film is KC being like, "Oh, I've sacrificed myself."
Again, so like someone has to fly the ship into the other ship because again, he made Independence Day and he's not. You're not breaking
Yeah.
that formula. So like someone has to fly, and then so Casey's like, "I'm gonna get in the ship. I'm gonna do it." And like the actor's pretty good, so so it's like a scene, like it's a good scene, like he plays it well, but it's also like, no, dude, do you know how to fly that thing? Like, the whole race is on the line.
don't
Like, I'm
don't
gonna
you
do
work
it.
at an Arby's? When did you learn the controls?
Like, I mean, I understand you have to crash it, but you're eventually gonna have to fly it a little bit, you know?
This isn't the submarine with an Xbox controller. This is real shit.
Yeah,
This is such like a nerd power fantasy.
I know. And
Not
then
only
at
that,
the
okay, because
end,
he sacrifices himself, but his ghost lives on in the machine. That's the twist. That
and then the human aliens are like, now we gotta tell you about this new thing that's happening.
oh yeah, the
That was a
sequel
sequel, man.
stinger. They thought they were doing a sequel. I hate
See?
that.
I love it when unfulfilled sequel bait is my favorite thing.
That was God, that one, or like the Predator movie that had a
The
huge sequel
Predators.
thing at the end. Or you're just like, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Ooh, don't
You
be
don't know if this movie's gonna do well. You know.
It's called having faith in yourself, like Roland Emmerich did. Okay,
did.
he had too much, a little bit. I feel. But yeah, this movie. I mean, this movie's a lot of fun. I feel like if they had told us from the beginning it was about AI, I would have. See, but I don't know because I think like finding out that it's an alien invasion story is hilarious.
I love that every time you think you know where it's going, it doesn't go that way. It
Yeah.
goes somewhere stupider.
It manages to both be completely unexpected and shockingly cliched at the
Yeah.
exact same time.
It's like, wow, I never thought of being that.
Yeah, the second they started with the ancient aliens flashbacks to like other
Oh.
planets, I'm like, oh man, that's why like if you are gonna see this, you should do the edible and then figure out if you're seeing it or you're just like your mind's wandering.
It's
'Cause you're
also
like, I
like,
won't know.
Because you're definitely
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't suggest watching this sober or by yourself. I feel like it's a fun friend movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
buyers I could not imagine. I like watching it in a group because someone kept falling asleep, and every time they woke up, they were even more confused. And they were like, "Why is it a different genre every time?"
I know. And I feel like it's that thing where it's like, was I bored sometimes? A little bit. Mostly when the kid was on. But then people are just dying. Like Patrick Wilson, they save the moon, they come back. I assume they go kill themselves. You know, it's just like, this is good movie times. And like, I think, honestly, I always find, like, I remember we went to go, me and Pablo, a previous guest on this podcast, went to go see The Day After Tomorrow in theaters, and it's a fun time because then like when we were like leaving, someone's like, do you think that could happen? Which is the most hilarious thing if you've ever seen The Day After Tomorrow. But I also feel like when I saw MoonFall, I was like, oh, this could happen, and it has. So maybe he's
The
on.
moon could fall. I love that. Like, the moon just leaves too. That's how they solve it. I don't think. I don't know. If, you know.
No, the moon is still there at the end because remember they're like, oh yeah, and that thing, and then it cuts and the moon is like broken, but it's like on our orbit. And it's like,
But,
oh,
yeah,
I guess
it
we don't
just
have
kinda goes-
waves.
Yeah, it is funny. It's like, man, if the mood even like shifted a little bit, every coastal city would be like destroyed. The movie does not concern itself with that.
No,
No.
The disaster is over.
I will say one thing I think was missing is that the only thing I really think Roland Emmerich can do very well is that he's very good about like introducing like characters that aren't that are gonna just die, and then kind of just to show you like, oh, it's snowing in Dubai. Here's these guys who are dying over there. And in this one, that never I wanted them to cut to like just a random shot of Paris and like the Eiffel Tower falls down or something like. Show us more, like show
Yeah,
more of this
yeah.
moonfall.
Yeah, like that's what people are in it for.
Yeah,
If anything, there should have been way more stuff on the ground because that's the funnest part. That's like the dog in Independence Day escaping all the explosions. Like you want to
Yeah.
see like ridiculous shit like that, you know?
it is funny how much this is just a remake of Independence Day, but
Yeah.
like,
But like kind of disguised for the
Yeah.
first half. Yeah.
But like, what if it was like QAnon Day?
I know.
Independence Day was QAnon Day.
I kind of like. I want to show Roland Emmerich like any conspiracy theory because I feel like he'd be on board with all of them.
Oh no.
He'd be like, "Oh, the Earth is flat."
He's like, it's flat and hollow, and somehow both.
Like, I'm
It's
sure that if I had
it's
been on
hollow.
set, yeah, we could have talked him into like making the structure inside the moon out of cheese. Like, I think we could have like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I'd love to just be like, hey, have you heard of the Mandela effect? You just start, giving a little complex.
Yeah, see, I want to be. What I want to do is be in the office next to him, and just like every couple of hours, be like, "Jet fuel can melt steel beams," and like see which one catches his fancy. You know, be like, "Wait, that guy couldn't have killed JFK by himself," and just like look and see, like, "Oh, is he coming?" No?
It's like, oh, okay.
Oh man.
The U.S. government wouldn't do that.
But yes, good. It's a fun time. It's a Roland Emmerich film. You should already know what you're going into. But I appreciate that he made it even weirder than he normally does. And also, no, it's about the same level of intelligence. It's also funny, like, this movie is just anti-AI. Take a lesson, A24, for once in your life.
Yeah.
It's anti-AI and yet still feels so AI written. Incredible.
Roland Emmerich is showing that he can get it done. But yeah, well, thank you, Maura, for joining us and introducing us to the Moonfalls. Next time we'll pick a movie for you. We'll subject you to an anti-AI movie.
Where's the pro AI movie?
It's going to be The Film AI by Steven Spielberg is the go-to in that case. Some robots are good.
Pro AI as we get is the movie AI, which we also covered. Go check it out, guys.
I was going to say, didn't we do an episode on that movie? Yeah. It'll be linked here.
It won't.
No.
Maybe I'll put the title card. Guys, it's not that hard. All of our episodes are right there. Just go look at them. Put AI in there. It's not. You can figure it out. Yeah. Well, Maura, what if people want to find you?
If you want people to find you online.
Sure. I don't post anymore, but sure. You can find me as Spacey Bones on Instagram. That's kind of the only one that matters. SPACEYBONES.
And as always, I'll put it down at the bottom. You can follow us on, I don't remember what our Twitter handle is, but you can check it out. Also, Instagram. Nobody checks the Instagram, but we're on there too. Yeah, check us out, guys. We got some more fun stuff. Next week, I don't know what we're covering. We might cover a crime movie because you guys love it. Oh, no, we're covering a Western.
Ooh.
Are we?
I already know which one we are.
Oh, okay.
We'll have a special guest. Hopefully she didn't watch me seem unenthused about it.
There is no way any of our guests watch any of this.
They might.
Except maybe the one they're in. Maybe
I will say, but that's why we like to do the guests, because like we never would have watched MoonFall, but it's perfect.
Yeah, that is true. This does introduce me to a lot of movies I would have never given a second chance to.
So maybe the movie next week will be good. I'm just not a huge fan of Western, guys. I'm not a hater. As I say about a whole genre that I just don't like. But yes, thank you for joining us, Maura. Check us out next week, and we'll see you guys on the Bum Squad.